Everybody, welcome to the Transformation Leaders Podcast. Sean Ennis is on vacation, so I am flying solo this week, and Sean will join us back again next week. But today, I wanted to get into the weeds a little bit with you guys about Claude Code, and while it's super powerful, there are some challenges when you're trying to use it on Windows, because if you have a Mac, lo and behold, everything or life is good. And so I have both Macintoshes that I use here. And the other key part of it is Windows. And a lot of times people will implement this either not correct or insecure. And I got a bunch of goodies and a bunch of good giveaways for you guys. I wanted to cut to the chase for those of you that are joining or watching, and making sure that I kind of get to the meat of this up front. The problem that we're trying to solve is when you go to do Claude Code, normally you can just run npm install-g and blah, blah, blah. You can read that on the screen. And so that works great on a Mac. If you try it on a PC, it won't run. So then you have to introduce something called WSL. So WSL is this component that comes from Windows Subsystem for Linux. And you can read more about that there. Just search for WSL documentation on Google, and you should land here at this page. It'll talk about how to install WSL. I'm going to give you a few commands. In addition to that, I'm going to share this repo with you guys. And so this is going to take you right here. I have a QR code that I can pop up for that. This is called the WSL repo. So if you want to scan this QR code now, this will take you directly into this particular repo that I'm showing behind the screen, or behind the scenes rather. And so let me take that away now. And I'm going to switch over more to the full desktop so that I can kind of walk everybody through the majority of this. I'll maybe bring the image back here ever so small, but if it gets in the way, I'll have to shut it down. All right, so a couple of things of interest to show you guys here. I'm giving you step-by-step instructions on how to get WSL set up so that you will have the least amount of problems. So the first thing you'll need to do is run this WSL install Ubuntu. And so what this does is it goes to the Windows Store and it will grab the Ubuntu and bring it down. And then what will happen is once you get this thing installed, let me go over here to apps, installed apps, and I search UBU. It'll install the Ubuntu raw image, I guess, for lack of a better term, that will be used with WSL. Now, I will call out that this is a little bit sticky for some of you. So depending on your machine or your PC, even if you have Claude Code, and I hope that this saves you a problem, because before you buy Claude Code, if you don't have access to a Mac and you fully intend to use this on a PC, you need to make sure that you have a couple of housekeeping things set up first to make sure that you can run a WSL. All right, so some of this is going to require Windows virtualization. So the first thing that you should do is turn Windows features on and off. So in the search bar, I'm literally just doing Windows features. Okay, here it is right here. So turn Windows feature on and off, and that pops up on my other screen. So let me drag it over here. So in here, you got a bunch of switches and dials to where you can turn features of Windows on and off. One thing at the very bottom is this Windows subsystem for Linux. You need to make sure that you have a tick in the tick box. As long as you do, that means WSL is enabled. It's good to go. If not, you need to turn it on. If for whatever reason it turns itself off, or tells you got to flip a switch in the BIOS to turn something on your chip, you'll have to follow those instructions, or look it up based on the instructions, or call your technical support for your PC or your company to get this enabled and turned on. But the assumption is if you don't have Windows Subsystem for Linux or the ability to turn it on, do not buy a subscription of Claude Code, because you're not going to be able to use it. And you're not going to be able to do anything else that I'm showing you here. So with that behind you, and making sure you don't get yourself into a situation to where, it could potentially cost you quite a bit of money. I purchased the Claude Code upfront for $200 a year. Otherwise, it's like $20 a month. And then you wind up paying like $240 if you just do month to month. So worst case scenario, you're out $200 if you can't have WSL. Or you can buy a Mac Mini, which is what I have. And that's about, I think I got mine on Amazon for, what did I get it for? I think it retails for like $5.99, and I got it for just like $512. It's also Prime Day right now, so that might even be on sale. So maybe check that out too. All right. So in any event, with that being said, I have these step-by-step instructions, but more importantly, I have copied out and formatted into a README style markdown document so that you can go and refer or have a quick reference. So if you're in WSL, so I'm going to pull up a command line, show you what a couple of things look like. So if I do WSL and do -- help, this long string of text, which is available to you. So you have it locally at all times. You don't have to remember this URL and go back and forth. I just gave it to you as a quick, nice, easy formatting. So everything that you see there, I formatted it and put it up here so that you can cleanly get access to all of that. So you can refer back to that documentation anytime that you so choose or want to. The other thing I do is in this README, we're going to install Ubuntu. Now, you'll find other instructions online. I'm not telling you that they're wrong or that you shouldn't follow them. I just know from experience that if you run WSL install Ubuntu and you haven't gone to the Windows Store or you haven't downloaded it, it'll just do it for you automatically. It will take a little bit longer. I have a fiber connection in my home, so it's pretty quick. But if you're on a really slow internet and you're watching this, this might take a little bit of time. So don't worry about it. Just kind of hang out and wait until it comes up. When you have it up and running, you should be able to simply just copy this command. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is type CLS to clear the terminal. And I'll do WSL, and I'm going to do -- list. And this is showing that I have one instance running. Now, I have Docker Desktop installed, and Docker gets installed by default now using WSL. So if you have Docker Desktop, then you already know that you have the capacity or the ability to run WSL. So you're good to go there. Otherwise, if you don't, you're probably alternatively using the old school legacy Hyper-V module, which is also in the Windows features, but you can't do anything with what we're trying to show you here. So if you're using Docker Desktop with that, Docker Desktop's working. You still need WSL. You're still going to have to turn that feature on. Okay, so again, assuming you have it, you should be able to now run that command that I copied, as you saw earlier, right here, and this will install Ubuntu. And so I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now, I want you to take notice while that's doing this, take notice of this. This is Docker Desktop, and then it says it's the default. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but I just want to note or have you note that this is going to default to Docker Desktop. If I type in just WSL, it's going to take me into a terminal, but it's going to take me into the terminal of Docker Desktop. And that's not going to be helpful if you're using Claude Code quite a bit. As a developer myself, I'm going to go into Docker Desktop maybe once in a great blue moon, but I will be living in Claude Code pretty much on the daily. So we're going to have to make some adjustments, and I'll show you how to do that too. All right, so the next thing it's doing is it wants you to set up a username and a password. I'm just going to use my dsoden, and I'm going to do the same thing again because I'll destroy this later. Basically, I'm putting in dsoden for everything. Okay, so now I am inside of the Ubuntu WSL unit, and so I have a bunch of other additional steps that I need to run. So I'm no longer in my Windows command terminal. Now watch, if I type in exit, okay, I'm back out to my David Soden users, basically my home folder. And so as a result of that, this is Windows. Now to get back into sorry, I'm losing track of my thoughts here. In order to get back into the distribution, I have to do WSL-D, and then I have to type in the actual name of the distribution. Now that will get me right in. Okay, so I'm right there again. Now I hope you saw something interesting. Now look at what's going on here. previously, I was at the tilde. Now, if you know anything about Linux, and I'm assuming some of you do and some of you don't, because if you're a Windows person, a lot of this is the Linux world, right? This is something you're potentially not even used to. So that's the reason I did what I did over here. And I have this next step, the step 2 that you'll need to do, because we've already gone through the step 2 of setting up Ubuntu, but I'm sorry, this is step 3. We're going to automate the development setup. So I have this script also up here, which if you want to, if you're cautious and want to see what I'm doing, you can go into the script, you can read the code, hopefully understand the code, but nonetheless, it's just essentially installing everything that it needs to make sure that you get Claude Code installed up and running. Now, the other thing to cut to the chase is, if the problem that you're trying to solve is this one. We're going to come back to the setup, but now that I've gotten far enough along, I want to go all the way down here to the documentation. And how do I get started with Claude Code? Now, here's the link to these instructions. So now I'm over at docs.anthropic.com, and this is talking about Claude Code. And I want you to notice all of the stuff here. Now, remember that little piece of code that was on the home page? I wanted to scroll down to about, let's see, the quick start. And let's go to overview. There's a warning. Did they move it since yesterday? Interesting. Okay, this is something that they had a warning up here about, and I guess they, believe it or not, updated their site. So in any event, I don't know what happened to it, but somehow they've removed the warning that they used to have up there. So it was something like this, but it was in orange and gold, and it was telling you not to run it with sudo because it created some potential risks or some issues. And so the way to solve this was to use Node Version Manager, because it just has you installing this with Node Packet Manager. And so if you do the package manager, you're going to run into a potential issue where it needs to have elevated permissions in order to run this. And so the disclaimer that they had as of yesterday, but apparently they've updated it. I don't know, maybe if they changed something or changed their position on the thought process here, but I'm just going to leave this here for you to do it. If you're using, WSL, there's nothing wrong with having Node Version Manager in there. It allows you to install multiple versions of Node in case you need to play or there's compatibility issues. You can go in and use certain named versions. But in doing that, it got around you needing to run sudo in order to install what you need to install here. All right, so that was the problem that we were ultimately trying to solve. So now if we go back into the terminal, the other thing too that I want to point out to you is that originally when I did the setup of the username and the password, I was at the tilde. Now what that means that you're in your home root directory inside of Linux. So just like when you saw when I was in the PC, I was in my David Soden folder, that tilde just brings you into your user folder. And so now what's interesting is it's bringing me, because I entered into WSL, it's bringing me into the Ubuntu distribution, but it's also bringing me into the directory from which I entered into the distribution from. So let me exit that out. I want you to take notice to here, the MNT. That means mount, and then it's giving the path. It's doing the C users David Soden. Let me exit out of this distribution. And now you can see that I'm in C users David Soden. Now this is important because as you go into Visual Studio Code later that I'm going to show you, you need to make sure that you're entering into VS Code from the folder that you want to go into the code from. And the reason for this is because you need to have this mapped drive here, because this is going to translate into what's going on into the terminal. So we'll get into all of that in just a few minutes. Let's finish setting this up. So I'm going to go back out to the code link that I had out here in the repo. And let me get out of here. Let's go back to the instructions. This will be the second line here. This is the quick and easy way. Now, if you don't feel safe running my script, because maybe you don't understand the code and you want to do it all manually, There's a method too. This is your alternate method. I'm not going to necessarily cover this one here because it takes a little bit more time, and I don't want to keep this video too long for everybody today. But nonetheless, if you do the installation of Ubuntu, then you're basically, this is like Windows updates. And so you basically, it's a two-part thing that you do in Linux. First, you run the update to see if there are any updates. And what it does is it updates the backend repository with any of the changes. And then you do a second pass. Once it's updated, it's essentially its catalog. Anything that does need updating is there and been flagged. So now you circle back and you run upgrade, and it goes through anything that's in the catalog that needs to be upgraded. And the Y switch just tells you, just go ahead and do it. I don't want you to ask me permissions. It kind of bypasses that step. Anyway, so that's what this is doing here. And then this is where we're installing Node Version Manager, or NVM. Okay, so it's basically running a bash script. It's going to this GitHub repo, and it's installing NVM, and this is the SH script. So if you didn't feel comfortable running my script, you're still going to have to run this script, which is from the GitHub user content NVM folks. It installs Node Version Manager. Okay, so with regard to that, this will restart your terminal, right? So there's commentation in here, so you can kind of read what it's doing. Anyway, we installed Node Version Manager. Then we're using that particular version of Node that just got installed. And you can see that verbosely we're throwing out what version of Node, what version of Node Package Manager we're using, and then what version of Claude. Because in step 4 up here, this is where we're then running this code against the Node Version Manager, which bypasses that sudo thing for you. In any event, okay, so that's the end of the script, and then lo and behold, that runs. So those are all those manual steps are simply just automated with this script. However, there's a caveat where, once you run the script, you just exit out of the WSL and then you enter right back in. So let me show you what that looks like. All right, so we're going to go here. Let me get back into the distribution. Okay, so now I'm going to paste in that script, and it's going to ask for my password. And now off to the races we're going. So essentially, this is automating the catalog, and then it's going to run the updates, or any updates that are needed from the catalog. And because I did the /y, here we go, I wasn't prompted to, hey, do you really want to install and update this? It's just doing it automatically for you. So we're moved on to that step. After this, we'll download Node Version Manager, and then it'll install the Claude Code from the command line there. And then we'll just exit out and we'll come right back in. It doesn't take too terribly long, but again, your mileage may vary, because I'm on a fiber connection and you may have a slower internet connection, or you may have a faster one, and my machine's slow. All right, so we're almost done here. We're at the end of the races. Okay, so that's it. Boom. This is the last line, and this is where it's telling you that you just exit. So we exit, and then we come back into it. And now what happens? I type in Claude. That's all you got to type, and you'll get into Claude Code. Boom. And now you're off to the races running there. We'll choose dark mode. Now, if you have a subscription, which hopefully you do, you'll just go ahead and click 1, and it'll sign you in, and it's not going to launch a browser, because I'm in Linux right now. I don't have a GUI. So the good news is if I press the control key down and click this, it will take me over to this Claude, which I'll authorize, and I'll copy the code, and then let me go back into here, and I'll paste this code in, and then it links my account to this Claude Code instance running in the distribution of Ubuntu in WSL on my Windows PC. All right, so all of that's good. Yes, I'll acknowledge that. And now it's just asking me if I want to trust. And at this time, I want to say no. I want to get out of that. I want to exit out of my WSL instant. So now I'm back at the regular command line. Okay, so let's do a couple of other things. WSL. So if I do WSL list, I still have the Docker desktop default. And all I want to do is just type WSL. But if I do that and hit enter, watch what happens. And it's because of this default. I told you I'd come back, and here we are. See, now I'm in the Docker desktop. I'm in WSL. I'm in the instance that is Docker desktop. Now, this may not happen to you, but you may have, if you're using WSL previously or already, if you want to set Claude, or that instance that has Claude, as the default instance, this is how you're going to do it. But if you don't do that, then you're going to wind up in whatever's flagged currently as your default. So I'm going to exit out of here. And let's do WSL -- help, because I want to show you the command. What you want is this one right here. So you can do essentially, instead of doing the -D for naming the distribution that you want to go into, you simply repeat the same step, but you swap out the -D with the -S. Okay, so let's do this. There's the -D. We're going to swap it out with an S, and let's do the list. And now you see Ubuntu is the default option. So if I type in WSL, bada bing, bada boom, life is good. Okay, so everything is all well and good here. I am going to exit out of here. I'm going to go into my C drive here. I'm going to go into where I have all of my repos. Let me just find a victim here. All right, so I am in my course, right? So one of the things that you can do, if you haven't already done, let me get out of here. Let me close this down. So let's just say I'm in Windows Explorer. I'm acting as a user in Windows. And at this point, what I want to do is I want to get into the WSL for this instance. And there's a really weird thing that has to happen here. Let me show you what happens if I just go into VS Code directly. So I'm going to go into VS Code, and I've already connected here. Let me just shut this down so we can do this from the start. Let me close the folder. Let's open the folder. Stop. Okay. Let me open folder. This is not acting normally. Normally I would get like a Windows desktop. Open file, open folder. This is bizarre. I don't want to do this. Let's do C, show local. There we go. All right. C repos. And my, can't even find my own project. There it is. Select a folder. All right. So I'm back into this, whatever that I've got here. All right. So here I am at the terminal, and I'm just going to assume that everybody's watching this. You all have different levels of experience. I just want to make sure I cover it for everybody, but I'm not going to go too deep. So if you want to get into the terminal, obviously you can come up here to terminal, new terminal, or you can use the shortcut. I typically just toggle this pane at the bottom, which invokes a terminal. Okay, so I am in the actual terminal or Windows PC terminal. So if I do dir, you see I have just a regular command line or terminal as it exists for VS Code, right? And so as a result of that, the key here, this is the key. I am already in my the folder that I need to be. So if I do WSL, now remember I set it as default. Otherwise I'd have to do the -D and then the Ubuntu, blah, blah. It's a pain in the neck. So just, I like this. Anyway, we're going to enter right in, and bada bing, look at this. Now I'm there. Okay, I'm in WSL, and I've already mapped the drive, which means Claude will now have access to the folder. The problem with doing it this way is you're only going to get partial functionality. And it's because VS Code and Claude aren't really fully or properly wired up. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll show you how to fix this. So most of you are going to be going in and doing it like this, and we'll say yes. And now I'm off to the races with Claude. Can you see my files? And it's going to try to go through, and it should have full rights to do whatever. It says listed 17 pass. I'm going to do Control R, and bada bang, it looks very similar to what I have over here if I twirl all this open. And so it can see my folders. Now I can interact, and I can just develop with Claude Code all day long. But again, I'm only going to get like half of the stuff that I'm looking for. So let me just exit out of here. Control R again, exit again, and now I'm back in my Windows terminal. I just type exit out of there too. Anyway, so now everything's shut down. And now I can do the close my folder. So I have VS Code just open, no project, nothing there. I'm going to now close down VS Code. All right, here's the other way. If I navigate into whatever my project folder is, and at this point I go up into the address bar or the Yeah, we'll call it address bar. And just type in CMD. Oops, sorry, it went off screen. This will bring me into my terminal or command line right here from the window. Okay, and so at this point, what I can then do is then go into my WSL. And then from here, this is the key part, right? This is the if you don't remember anything, remember this part. So if I type in, sorry, it's not VS Code, it's just code and then a space and then a period. Now, what's happening is I'm inside of the WSL instance and I'm saying I want you to launch VS Code. But more importantly, in the WSL instance, I mapped my drive to the drive that's on my PC. So this is how it kind of all comes together. Now I'm going to get VS Code and I'm going to get all of this other information. And inside of my terminal, if I type in Claude, now everything's wired up. Now, here's the key difference that you'll know if you screwed something up or you don't have a proper connection. Up here in the top right corner, you see this run Claude code, right? It's sitting here because this window's open. If I open HTML, if you don't see this icon up the top here, then you've gone into that half-baked method, which means you probably went into VS Code and you went into your project or whatever, and you could potentially miss some really good, helpful things. Because when this is here, you start getting code level. It's great that it can see your project and can see all your files, but if you need code-specific Claude Code or inline help, if this guy right here is missing, it didn't install and it didn't wire everything up. The other thing that it may do for you if you don't already have it installed is there should be this Claude code that it should install by itself. If it doesn't, make sure you have this installed. If not, just go to the store, search it, and do whatever. All right. So this is how you can automate, get WSL set up. You can use my script. Again, I'll pop open the QR code. So scan that on your phone, bookmark it, or clone the repo or whatever you want to do. And this will take you out to the script to get all of this set up and get you off to the races on the right way. This will also be available on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see it there. And over the holiday, I went ahead and I launched a brand new website, which if you go to transformation, whoops, not tranquilizer dart. There we go. The Transformation Leaders Podcast has a brand new website. And so you can go there, you can listen now. Here's the episodes. You can listen to any of the other previous episodes. This is all live. You just go and click on it. It'll take you there. So if you would like to be a guest or contact us or reach out, you can send information down here at the bottom of the form. And you can join us here on the podcast anytime you wish. Just shoot us a message, tell you what you want. And both Sean and I will get your email and we'll be able to make any arrangements or answer your questions or whatever it is you may have. You can also reach out to Sean and myself. Here, we're both your hosts, and so you can click on those links to get to our profile. You can IM us, connect with us, and send us messages there. All right, guys, this was a very short presentation today, about a half hour long, but I am running solo, so I didn't want to take longer than necessary, but still wanted to keep the show running for everybody. So that's it for this episode. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.